insert yourself into an organization as folks who are experts trying to help an organization get to an optimized state. A lot of times you're not starting at the architecture. A lot of times you're starting at chaos, and you're just trying to bring some order to it, some understanding to it. And so I see this. I've called it the optimization journey in the past, but I really do think it's the FinOps journey of like, okay, we're going to get to that point where you're going to modernize all your apps, because that's when we're thinking about architecture, and that's when we're truly architecting it the right way. But we have to start with, man, what do you have, and why is it even here? And that's where we go in and label it. We allocate it to the business. We start to eliminate the things that are just unnecessary because they're buried in there. You know, when we're looking at people who have spending of $1 million, $2 million, $10 million, whatever a month, there's so much stuff that's just legacy buried, left behind, that you just have to get out of the way. So we're not having an architecture discussion about that. It's just gone. Let's get rid of it. But once you map it, you start to understand your unit economics. And now we have business conversations about investment in your products, where I can start taking your unit economics. Can I cut them in half, right? Can I go and modernize this app, put some capital into it, cut that in half, and now forevermore you're delivering your product in a 50% more efficient state. Mm-hmm. That's when we're really in true optimization mode. And you're absolutely right. That's because the architecture is the important part. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Greenfield, it's a much easier conversation. Inserting yourself in chaos, it is a journey, and it's a very difficult one mm-hmm. for many organizations without help, mm-hmm. guidance, some Sherpas to take them along the way.
Yeah, definitely. And let me just speak to something that I've experienced just along that dimension. Reducing cost in half, being able to deliver your services with 50% of the cost, fantastic. That's not only going to give you a lot of leverage in the market because you can price it accordingly. It's also a very difficult time right now in terms of cost, customer acquisition cost, especially if you're dealing with direct-to-consumer products or direct-to-consumer services. Very, very expensive to acquire customers at a reasonable rate. And so it's just you're sort of being squeezed on both sides if you don't pay attention to this. And I personally have experienced it with my previous company. I mean, with Apple and their policy, and the market is very, very crowded as well. So the entire unit economic, the entire unit structure, the cost structure of delivering a service, with some of these assumptions that we had in the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years, is now being kind of challenged. And so it's ever more important to kind of really do a deep dive on some of the cost structures. And one great place to look at is cloud optimization. There are tools and best practices available to you today. And it's just a matter of time and kind of effort on the part of the organization to actually look into this. So
I 100% agree with that. When you think about the macroeconomic conditions, and let's talk about a recession. When you think about a downturn, you think about a recession, it's dangerous for every organization, even cash-rich, high-growth organizations who are doing really, really well. The reason it's dangerous for them is not necessarily the initial, consumer interest might be waning. That'll impact them. It's that the credit markets are going to dry up, and if they can't get access to capital in order to continue delivering new products, they have to think about other ways of getting revenue, and or cutting their costs. And if you just have 1 or 2 bad sales quarters when you're normally on a high growth clip, which is to add, value added services, and you don't have access to that capital to bridge, suddenly even great organizations can find themselves in situations where the company's not in trouble, but they're going to have to start laying off staff. And when they lay off staff, they ding morale. When they ding morale, they're going to lose some of the most talented players. The most talented players are the drivers of your growth engine. So you just killed your growth engine by not preparing ahead of time. Being proactive, even when you're in a really good place, is what helps you weather those conditions, helps you weather a bad sales quarter or 2, get through it without actually killing your growth engine.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say, I think this message should go to the heart of the the C-level executives and the product managers and people that are sort of on the business side of things, super important to consider this and really take seriously. It's not something that you can just lob over and say, look, figure this out, cut the cost by 50%. It doesn't work that way. You got to work very closely and you have to take responsibility for this. Ultimately, C-suite is responsible for the company. So just rolling up your sleeves and just get your hands dirty with engineers. Very important to do.
I like to equate it. I always like to equate it back to agile because I went through the transition from waterfall to agile. It was sort of like in the waterfall days, having the C-suite lob over, "Hey, we need to release this faster," and so, you get a faster release, but it might not be what you wanted. So,
exactly. Yeah. We could save a lot of money. We just might have to shut down production. Is that okay with you?
That's right. Exactly.
I mean, that's what we did. Listen, we were doing a whole bunch of work. Our cloud bill got out of control. And, I just got with the engineers and we sat down, we took a look at everything, and we were able to get it down dramatically. And it's stayed there since, but just by giving them the information that they needed. That's it. That's all we did was give them the information and tell them, if you're going to make decisions that are, wildly different than, what we're seeing here from a cost perspective, just let us know. Just need to know those things. Yeah. And so having that data at our fingertips, constantly monitoring it, and giving the people that affect the cloud the tools to understand how their decisions affect cost and optimization and all those things, you go a long way with just doing that.
Definitely.
We actually cut our costs by 70%. We're an outlier, but we had our own dog food. We did all the right things. We cut our costs by 70%. But again, we're a startup, and we made some of those upfront decisions where we said we got to move fast. We're going to come back. We're going to clean up this technical debt. And sure enough, when you start looking at the cloud bill every month and it's huge, you go, man, what the heck? And ate our own dog food. We actually shaved.
That's amazing. 70% is incredible.
It's a lot. Well, I don't know if it makes us incredibly bad at spending money or what.
I mean, these weren't, really kind of weird sort of decisions that were being made. These were regular decisions that we see in customers' environments all the time, right? It was like, I don't know how long. Let's turn on S3
I need
version.
a quick scheduler, so let me deploy an EC2 instance and drop cron and schedule a bunch of stuff as opposed to using EventBridge or something, right? It's just a completely different cost structure,
right? And let's turn on S3 life cycle so we can keep versions of every object, and then let's forget to turn on a policy to delete it, which is but honestly, we see that often, and people look at it. It's like, I'm like, why do we have 150 terabytes of data, or something like that, right? Or whatever it is. Why we don't need that much data. So anyway, they were the same common mistakes that most organizations make. We obviously made the decisions to do it. We realized it, and now since then, it's been working really well. So amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah. Let me ask you guys this question. Maybe I could sneak in a little question as a free consultation for all the audience. What is one thing that you guys found to have like an outsized impact when it comes to cost optimization?
Jason, you want to take it first?
I would go to just allocating out your environment. Like I know it's like, it's not shutting off an EC2 instance. It's nothing technical, right? I mean, it might end up, the output might be that, but the biggest thing is understanding why you're spending the money you're spending. Once you understand that, everything becomes clearer, what you need to do, not just you as an organization, but all of the people that affect cloud. And so, because each case is different. We've seen customers that have a lot of storage, and so they leverage a lot of S3, but they don't leverage a lot of compute. We've seen customers that leverage a lot of compute, but don't leverage. So there's no one size fits all. But the one thing that is a one size fits all is if you don't know why you're spending what you're spending, you can never optimize. And so it has the biggest impact just by giving you the visibility into your spend.
Yeah, I agree with Jason. Accountability is actually the number one issue. It's not a technical issue. It is actually a business cultural issue.
Yeah.
And it's not because people are bad or malicious or doing anything wrong. In fact, they're really well intentioned. If you go to an engineer and you say, well, why are you running this? And they'll probably have a story about why it's still there. You know, so-and-so said we need to shut down this workload, but don't delete it because we may need it for X, Y, or Z in the future. And then it was never followed up on, and that starts to accumulate technical debt. So accountability is the number one. Or nobody knows why something's there. The person left and something's running, right? So that's one. I'll give you a really direct technical one, though, is the overuse of EC2 or VM instances. Just the overuse of server infrastructure is absolutely a killer on cloud bills.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it's what AWS, Azure, GCP, they want you to use legacy compute. Makes them the most money, stays on all the time. You know, and you know, you can cut a lot out by scheduling instances to turn on, shut down. But we all know that that's difficult at times. I mean, it's not like you could just say that for everything that you have. So it's not a very easy thing to achieve. But yeah, that would be technically speaking, that's obviously the next biggest bang for your buck.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What about you, Becko?
I wholeheartedly agree with both of those points. I think cost optimization starts with cost allocation, the crawl, walk, run model. 100% agree with that. The compute, very, very much so. It's sort of like how is it that you're still like creating a monolith of like, is that even legal?
How are you
nowadays?
still stitching servers together to be an application, right? Like,
Hey, but also, man, it's a brilliant tactic, but the hardware vendors figured out how to get you to buy more hardware by using containers. And so so we'll go into environments like, oh yeah, we moved everything to containers. How many EC2 instances do you have before? A couple hundred. How many do you have now? A couple hundred. I mean, it's crazy how they've been able to continually do this. And containers, in my opinion, is just another way to keep you on legacy compute. They're obviously they have their function. You can cut down a lot of cost, but you know, they're a tool to be used for specific reasons, right? Containers are just like Lambda functions or Azure functions are. Those are tools to use. We've seen way too many times where companies go, I'm going to put everything in Kubernetes because that's going to save me a ton of money. And then they start putting things in there that are just running all the time. Like tasks that just run all the time, that don't need to run all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so it's getting off of legacy compute is probably the reason why is because it requires so much solution architect architecture, re-architecting the application. And we just talked to a company the other day that they couldn't even figure out how to move it from legacy compute to.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they could figure it out, but then it becomes a function of like, how much time do I want to invest in re-architecting this entire application? And it just happens to be their most business critical application. And, you know, there's so much internal to the organization. There's so much apprehension to doing it because of all the problems that might come as a result of it. So, you know, there are obviously reasons, but, I think these companies will get left behind at some point because they won't be able to keep up with the speed, pace of change, agility that all of these other companies who are leveraging more cloud native like technologies.
Yeah, definitely. And just on the point about, hardware providers want you to keep that cash train going. One of the things that I emailed you about is this whole rise of AI. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be really interesting because, that is who is going to be the biggest winner in all of this. In my opinion, is that it's going to be the cloud vendors and the semis, because they're the picks and shovels of the gold rush. They are the Levi Strauss of the modern day gold rush, and I think they are slated to win majorly in this gold rush.
Great analogy. Holy shit. That's a great, I don't think that's a great one. Levi Strauss of the Gold Rush. That's
Yeah, Levi Strauss. What's the other one? Wells Fargo of Gold Rush.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So who are the losers? I have an answer. I want to hear yours.
I think it's all these crazy hyped up AI startups. And I think the biggest losers are going to be these thin wrapper, like just wrapper startups around GPT. I mean, I think their moat is becoming thinner by the day.
Well, yeah, but they're mining for gold, and so they know it will be gone soon. But they're trying to make money while it's still there.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's some I do think that there's some play in a company providing a wrapper that allows normal people to use it well. Or, like non-technical people. It is a technical tool, right? It is really technical. You have to learn prompts and you have to do Google. It's almost like trying to write Terraform code, right? To get ChatGPT to spit you out something that works. Yeah. And so I do think that there's a play, but again, this is what I was thinking the other day. I thought this was pretty interesting. A ChatGPT wrapper with a human chat to help you along with it. It's like we've come full circle. So it's like we've got a AI chat with a little chat with a human at the bottom to help you use the chat bot. I thought that was pretty funny. It's like we're the company that has a human next to the chat bot. It's like, how do you get people like my dad to use it? Or like my dad or my mom or whomever, right? Anybody in the generation above us. You have to make it easy, and it's not easy to use it yet. And so I do think there are some plays in that, but for the most part, these companies are coming out with like, save chats, save your chats. That's easy. They're going to solve it, right? Or save prompts. They'll solve that too. Plugins, I think, is the biggest thing that they have to release, but I think they're scared to let that out to the wild. Like, give me the ability, give ChatGPT the ability to read a website that I give it to you and do something with it, right?
Yeah, like the auto GPT stuff. I don't know if you guys played around with that. I mean, I played around with it the other day. It's still a toy, obviously kinks, but you can see the future. But back to my thing on this is, man, like AI companies, sure, there are going to be few winners. Big winners, in my opinion. A lot of the value is just going to be captured by the cloud vendors. Is my thinking.
Absolutely.
What about you,
Bedrock and even OpenAI, right?
There you go. Yeah.
That's right. I agree with you. That's where the value is going to be captured. I think the losers. It's an unpopular opinion right now, but I think the losers in it are actually going to be the engineers. I think they're the prospectors. I think that the vast majority of them are going to become undervalued because of what generative AI is going to be able to do. And those who are able to adapt and use generative AI to support their tasks are going to start driving, average lines of code per day from 80 to 200 to 1,000 to 2,000. And those who aren't are going to go the same way as tradespeople in the American, second industrial revolution and the, massive rollout of manufacturing in the U.S. is very skilled people were largely replaced with unskilled labor on a line. I think that's what's coming in the decades to come.
Isn't it similar though to Google? Will we just need an exponentially more code, right? Because like when Google was, when Google became the place where engineers and developers went to go make sure they were doing the right things, the engineers that wouldn't use Google got left behind, right? Or wouldn't use it to help them. But now, because we needed exponentially more code, we needed more developers.
We needed exponentially more televisions and exponentially more shoes, et cetera, and all that manufacturing shipped to where the labor markets were cheapest. I mean, I see what you. So
going to the
what we're going to see.
Yeah. I think the capital is obviously is seeking. It's hungry for returns, and capital is going to flow to where it is going to get the best return. And you're not going to get the best return by paying high salary for engineers. You're going to get the best return by hiring 1-2 engineers that really know how to use these tools to create 10x the output. I think that's where we're going. But I understand your point too, Jason. I think with the number of apps that we've seen since the dawn of iPhone has exploded. I think this is another sea change moment where the number of software that is going to be written, I think it's going to do another step change to the upside. Meaning everybody will have their own custom app. Everybody will be able to just spin up a few things here and there. There obviously will be the state of the art by professional developer class, but I think people will create their own plugins, create their own this and that. So number of applications will grow, but I think it's going to be done sort of artisanally.
Yeah. But I do agree that the shift will be to less costly human beings in that industry, and it will water down that market for sure.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that's a sour note to end on. We're going to end on it anyway.
Well, it's like
all right.
It's better than we all die because of generative AI or becomes Terminator 2.
Maybe I'll attempt to end it in a positive note. I'll say the cost optimization and the architecture stuff, because it's so intertwined with business, that I think is where some of this stuff will continue to live for a very, very long time, because you have to have the contextual understanding. It's a human in the loop kind of decision process. And it's not just about, let's commit to some X number of savings instance. It's much more tightly coupled than that, with a business outcome. It's very much human in nature. So from that standpoint, I do think that this line of work is going to continue, and obviously will be all of us will be augmented by AI to some degree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Machines are consistent, humans are contextual, and it's really hard to change that because humans are not consistent at all, and machines are not really contextual. I mean, AI is giving some context, but not in the sense that a human is able to adapt and understand very, very quickly. So I agree with that. Awesome. So let's end it on that note, because that's a much better one. So, Becko, tell folks where they can find you and how they can get a hold of you. Reach out.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Beko Jango, BEKO JANGO. And then you can visit my website, awshealth.cloud. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions related to cost optimization, FinOps, related to healthcare.
Awesome. I mean, you're looking for anyone who's in the healthcare startup space, right? They should talk to you.
Yeah, healthcare space, healthcare startup space, founder, engineers, product leaders. I'd be more than happy to talk to them to see if I can be helpful in their journey and in their business journey.
Awesome. Great. I mean, in my opinion, it's always worth, 15, 30 minutes with someone to at least, if nothing else, you make a professional connection, but you always learn something in those conversations. So listeners, reach out to Becko and have that conversation. It's a great thing to do. Jason, any parting thoughts?
Nope. All set.
Awesome. All right. Head out to tenacity.ai, download the Cloud Cost Optimization Handbook, like, subscribe, tune in, hit us up on Reddit /r Cloud Cost /r/Cloud Cost Optimization for any questions, comments, etc. Stay tuned for more in the next Cloud Cost Optimization episode. Thanks so much.